All right. Afternoon, Facebook. Thank you for the time of anybody who is giving it to me. I much appreciate it. We're going to go into my book research, part one. So one of the key concepts that I want to reiterate that I've talked about in past videos, but want to make sure we get clear is what I'm trying to teach you how to do is how to move the way the virtuosos do, or to align your body the way the virtuosos do. But in order to do that, I have to teach you how they feel their body the way they do. And they use the word tension a lot. And they'll say, oh, you're tense, or you need to eliminate tension in your playing. And what they're talking about is what in science is called proprioception. It looks like proprioception when you see it actually written. And that is the body's ability to feel internal muscular exertion. So like when you know your arms are fatigued from carrying a child, or for bench pressing when you hit failure, or the fatigue you get from your legs from doing a long hike, that ability to feel muscular fatigue is proprioception. It's also the ability to feel from stretching. So in the examples I just gave you, that was like you exerting muscle. But let's say you do like a stretch where I'm really stretching out the bicep here, and I'm pulling the arm this way with the tricep. The stretching here is also what you're able to feel. And then also a little bit of like the skin and muscle being stretched. The skin being stretched as well is another component to that. And so what I'm going to teach you to do is how to feel that. Now, the way that I'm going to teach you how to feel that is sort of treat the main joints that you use in playing guitar, which is only like 5 or 6, as like your tools. And so you have this joint here that connects your arm to your shoulder. You have the elbow, which is 2. You have the wrist, which is 3. And then you have the knuckle and the 2 finger joints, which I think gives you a total of 6. And so those are kind of the main tools in playing guitar, and we're going to teach you how to use those and how to feel those. So we're going to start off with is the forearm and the wrists. And the way I think about that is the forearm from the elbow down to the wrist can be move in 2 directions. One is palm up, and then the other is palm down, and then this is the center of its range of motion. So palm down, palm up, center of its range of motion. And so you can either hold like this and do that exercise, so do palm up and then just let it relax. And what's happening is when you stop exerting muscle, gravity is just sort of acting on it and pushing it right back to the center. Or palm down. Also, in addition to gravity, like the muscles are sort of set up. It's like your whole body is sort of set up to be in sort of an alignment, is the basics of it, like your neutral zone. You know, when you're never really using no amount of muscle, because even just living, like right now to sit upright, I'm not using a lot of muscle, but gravity's still pushing down on my body. So it's kind of a combination of gravity's bringing it to the center, but also the muscles are all sort of set up so that they kind of, it's the neutral zone, you know. It's the center of its range of motion that the body tends to want to navigate to. And so what I recommend is I'd start with, and you can either do it holding it like this, or you can do it at your side. And what I do is I'd start with really large ranges of motion and feel in the forearm, on the bottom and the top, and in the upper arm, the muscles either exerting or being stretched, and then let it relax. And then I do really big motions, and then I let it relax. And then you're not going to really hold like this ever when you're playing guitar. So what you have to teach yourself to do is to do smaller motions, because when you're playing guitar, you're either probably going to be wiggling in a way you didn't realize, or you're going to be like holding it out of alignment in a way that you didn't realize. And so you want to start with like half the motion and let it relax. Half the motion, letting it relax. And then do like just invisible amounts, like this and relaxed. This and relaxed. And eventually then you can start doing that when you're actually playing guitar to train yourself to align that forearm. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the wrist. The wrist can go down, flexing, and you want to feel kind of, because the muscles that are pulling it are in the forearm, because you got to think it's kind of like the muscles are always behind the joint being acted upon, usually. And so what you're going to feel is you're going to feel muscles in the hand on top being stretched and skin being stretched. You're also going to feel that down here in the palm. You're going to see the thumb move and the fingers splay out. And you're going to feel some exertion along here. And then you bring it back to the center where you don't feel that anymore. Then you want to extend the wrist, which is going up. And you want to feel that on the top and on the bottom. And then you want to let it relax in its center. And then you want to do smaller amounts just like we said before. So here's neutral, small amount, back to relaxed. Here's a little bit of extension, back to relaxed. Then you want to do what's called deviation, which is going side to side, and I call it either pinky deviation towards the pinky, and you want to feel on this side here the muscles being stretched because they're being pulled this way like you're doing a stretch. And then you want to feel the muscular exertion on this side as you're pulling this way. And then you want to bring it back to the center. And then you want to do the same thing towards the thumb deviation. You can also do this exercise at your side. The only catch is that when you're like this, what for most people you're going to find is that the thumb is actually, when you let it hang like this, the way that everything lines up. So when we did the forearm, it was all kind of a line in the center of its range of motion. But with the wrist, what's going to tend to happen is that you're going to have some pinky deviation. So one exercise I like to do, because this is kind of what will apply on guitar, is I like to let it hang, and I like to feel the tension here that's coming from this being stretched due to the pinky deviation, and just thumb deviating it until you don't feel that tension anymore. And now you know it's aligned. And that's another great exercise as well. And then from there, you can do flexion, let it relax, extension, let it relax, thumb deviation, let it relax, pinky deviation, let it relax. Except again, you kind of have to lift it a little bit to bring it there because of what we just described before. Now some preview of what's to come next. So first of all, one thing that we're going to have to talk about is we're going to have to unpack gravity acting on it a little bit more, because for an example with the wrist, let's say I'm playing guitar and I'm, pretend my left arm is the top of the guitar. As I raise the wrist up, if I don't hold the wrist in place and I just let those muscles relax, gravity is going to act on the wrist and move it out of alignment. And that's all controlled by mainly this joint here that connects your shoulder to your whole arm. So we're going to have to unpack that a little bit. And the other thing too is you're going to have to start tying that into the finger motion, because the reason you need to learn how to align your forearm and your wrist is because you can kind of think of your muscles as like a castle. The muscle is the castle, the forearm is the biceps the castle, the forearm's the drawbridge, and then the tendon that connects it to the chains to the drawbridge. And as you pull to the castle with those chains using the muscle, you pull up the drawbridge. Now that's true for all of them, but it's a little messier with the fingers, because the fingers, those muscles are in the forearm and then they run through the wrist through the carpal tunnel. So when you move your wrist out of alignment, you can try this yourself, it's going to spread the fingers even though you're not doing any finger spreading. Like you can spread the finger, you can flex and extend and spread the fingers on your own, or you can do none of that with those finger muscles and just move the wrist, and that'll have an impact on the fingers. So we're going to have to unpack a little bit of that in the wrist, which is why we are starting with the forearm and the wrist. Because everything that comes after that is sort of about like this is where you're trying to get to, is to have control over these two joints, but all these other joints and gravity have an impact on other things and relate to this. So we're going to flesh that literally flesh that relationship out. So thanks.